So there's some powerful images today. I'm just going to say one from the first reading and then talk more about this gospel. But this idea of being a stiff-necked people. That's how God called his people that were getting stubborn. And maybe a way of thinking about this is maybe you've done it when you were little, hopefully not right now, but have you ever seen maybe your little brothers or sisters when they go into the ultimate, like super temper tantrum? Not just I'm crying, but they go completely limp. They're like in the restaurant or whatever, and they're just kind of like that, and all of their muscles just like go down, and then their poor mom or dad is like trying to like bring them to the car, and they're just like being dragged along. That's what God is talking about here. This stiff-necked aspect, just kind of going like this. It's the idea of when an ox is in a yoke and they're going and they're plowing. When they go like this and they try to, in a sense, do their own thing, they're not going to get anywhere. They're going to mess up the plowing, but they're also just going to be in so much pain. And the Lord is saying that's what it's like when we are stubborn, when we want to do our way instead of allowing God to lead us first. And all of us have this temptation to say, I want what I want, when I want it. And the Lord is saying, I have something greater for you, but you have to trust me. That's what this first reading is talking about. But the second reading, or the gospel today, is talking about, are we a person of unity, or are we a person that likes to cause division? Division will always lead to more division, more brokenness. A house, kingdom divided against itself, will be laid waste. That's actually what President Abraham Lincoln used in his second inaugural address when he became president in the midst of the Civil War, saying that we need to fight for a union because we're only going to be stronger when we actually learn how to become one again. And I invite you to think about this thought. Imagine that in the American Civil War, we became a divided country, period. Imagine what would have happened in the Second World War, in which Adolf Hitler rose to power and was taking over all of Europe. The Imperial Japanese Empire was taking over all of the Pacific. Think about the important role that our country had in overturning those two particular empires that were creating a lot of darkness, a lot of genocide, a lot of destruction, attacking the destruction of the Jewish people. Imagine if we were a divided country and we were weak. Would history maybe be a little different? Would perhaps we be looking at a Nazi flag instead of an American flag, even within our own country? Division leads to weakness. Unity leads to strength. But as Jesus says here, we have to make sure that we're going towards something that's truthful, something that's good, something that is beautiful. Because if we were to go towards something not good, it never will lead to a deep unity. And you see this a lot with, even in different stories and different moments in history, that whenever bad guys try to create some sort of friendship, some sort of bond, they're always going to inevitably turn against each other. They're going to somehow not be able to be strong because evil has this way of eating itself. because there's pride there, there's selfishness, there's a desire for power. These are just part of this reality of evil. And when you have different, in a sense, villains working together, they might work at first to fight against something that's good, but then ultimately they'll turn against themselves. So we have to ask ourselves, am I someone that's working towards unity in bringing people together? But am I also bringing them together for the right thing? Because if we bring together for the wrong thing, and you can think of, for those of you who have studied another time in history, you have the Soviet Union, the communist movement. And this was something that looked good on paper. It was this idea of, let's bring everybody together so everyone will be equal. Everyone will have bread, will have land, will have peace and no war. But if you look at what happened, it was rooted not on a good sense of what it means to be a human person. The way that they would look at what it means to be a human person is, you don't matter. Your individuality doesn't matter, and you really are just another sort of like nail or screw, or they would say cog, like in this big machine. And so whether you live or whether you die, it doesn't really matter. Do you see how that's not a great way to build a society? Because ultimately, what happened is people would turn against each other, and there would be no bread for those who really needed it. Some of the biggest famines happened during that time. There would be lots of wars, and there would not be equality. Because even though they said that on paper, because they were trying to build a unity that was not a good unity, they said, let's be united, but I'm going to take more than you. And ultimately, you had in this moment of communism, and this is how ultimately the Soviet Union broke down, was because they just broke themselves down. So that's an instance of trying to have a society, trying to have a group of people gather together, but for not a good purpose. And it never leads to unity. So be a team player, but make sure you're going towards the right goal. As many of you sports players know, and maybe you've been on teams, I've been on teams in which there was a lot of individual talent, but not knowing how to work as a team. And that team that might be more talented overall might lose against a lesser talented team that is actually playing together. Because remember, when you are united, you're stronger than just individuals. And I was on teams in which you had amazing dribblers in soccer, but they would try to do it all by themselves. And they would never be able to get to the goal because there were 4 different defenders that were crowding in. And you would have one guy go in, one guy go in, one guy go in, and it would never work, even though they were by far a better player than any of the defenders that were there. But imagine if you were united, but then you were going towards the wrong goal. Have you ever done that, maybe in basketball, where you shoot on your own basket? I have in middle school. My career middle school basketball experience is actually a -2. So I never actually made a basket on my own basket, but I made a basket, or I never made a basket in the right way, but I actually made a basket on my own basket. And sometimes we can get confused and maybe we go towards the wrong direction. But imagine if the whole team gathered together, and imagine if one of them, maybe one of the leaders said, let's go this direction, let's score on this goal. And everyone's like, yes, let's do it. And they all turn around, and even the goalie starts running out of his goal, and they all start going towards the wrong goal. Unity has to lead to truth, or else it'll just dissolve. And unity following truth and following what God wants for us, it is where the long-lasting unity is going to be. So again, ask yourself the question, am I a person that works towards gathering people or breaking them apart in what I say and what I do? In my class, on the recess, on the recess, at lunch, in the way that I treat one another? Am I someone that tries to bring people together, but also remember, am I bringing them together for the right thing? You wouldn't want to bring people together and have a big unity over bullying someone else. Do you see how that works opposite? And ultimately, that will not end in a good way. So ask yourself the question during this Lenten season, am I someone who works for unity? Am I a team player? But am I using unity in the service of helping others and not hurting them?